Okay, so welcome back to the recorded version of our lecture for fuel during exercise, also known as bioaerogenics. So, before we kind of dive into what we're going to do today, today's topics that we're going to cover are nutrients, energy, and metabolism. So, just some basic overall definitions that I think we all need to become familiar with before we dive into this whole idea of bioaerogenics is what substrates are. So, substrates are nutrients, and we primarily get these through carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And these are fuel that we use to make ATP or adenosine triphosphate, and that is our cell's primary form of energy. Bioenergetics is the process of converting these substrates into energy, and this is performed at the cellular level. So, bioenergetics is how we transform the food that we eat into a viable source of fuel for our body. And the metabolism is all of the chemical reactions that are occurring in our body. So, just basic definition of nutrition. It is a scientific study of how food and its components affect growth, development, metabolism, health, and disease, as well as mental and physical performance. So, nutrition is a pretty important part of how we not only just daily function, but also how we perform physically when it comes to sport. Food is going to be anything that we eat or drink that supports life and growth. And so I'm sure that all of you can think about maybe what you've already ate today as you're watching this video, or drank coffee, creamer, Starbucks, whatever it may be, but anything that you put into your body that is going to support life and growth. And then we have nutrients. So, nutrients is going to be the substance that elicits the biochemical and physiological function in the body. So, this is going to be those carbohydrates, fats, proteins, and waters that are going to help elicit some of these chemical reactions to occur so that the fuel that we ingest is usable for our cells. Nutrients can then be broken down into macronutrients and micronutrients. So it's going to be important that you guys understand the difference between the two, and be able to pick out which ones are which and where they go, and kind of a little bit of background on what a carb is, what a fat is, what a protein is, and what water does, in comparison to the micronutrients, which are considered to be vitamins and minerals. So macronutrients, genuinely speaking, are going to be a chemical substance that is required in the diet in a large quantities. So most of the time we will get these through carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And these are what we call energy yielding nutrients because they supply our body with energy. So anytime you think of consuming something that basically has a calorie associated to it, a carb, a fat, or a protein, it is going to be energy yielding, and therefore it is going to be considered a macronutrient and something that can support life. Carbohydrate is going to be the primary function, is going to provide energy. So carbohydrates, we need them. They are great. We need them for daily function. We need them to support life. It is a fast source of energy, and our body uses that quite frequently. And most important is during high exercise intensity, and in cold weather. So everybody here needs carbohydrates to survive, in some form or another. And specifically, if you want to perform at a high level when it comes to intense exercise. So if I have any CrossFitters out there, or anyone who's ever worked out before, if you try to exercise at a high intensity without a good carbohydrate source before you do so, you might find it very challenging or really tough afterwards because your body likes to use carbohydrates in that scenario. However, carbohydrates are very limited in supply and can be stored as an energy reservoir in the liver and in muscle as in form of a glycogen. So we do have storages of carbohydrate, but it is very limited in nature. Total in your everyday diet, you should be consuming between 45 and 65% of your calories should be coming from carbohydrates. So we utilize carbohydrates a lot. We like carbohydrates a lot, and it's important for us to consume them to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So we do have some good carbs and bad carbs. Good carbs, you can think of fruits, vegetables, whole grains, milk, anything that is going to have a low glycemic index. And we like to call that, like, it takes longer for it to break down. Our body is going to utilize this as energy and fuel. Typically, they have more fiber associated with it. And then we have bad carbs, on the other hand, that are going to be pretty much anything that is processed food. They have a high glycemic index. It's very fast for them to get like stored away if we don't utilize them right away. Sugary cereals, refined white bread, candy, cookies, soft drinks, all of those things are associated with a lot of bad carbs, including the cake I'm going to eat this weekend for my sister's birthday. So our body is very unique, you guys, and the fact that we can find storages of food and utilize it for performance. So this man right here won the Boston Marathon in 2018 and had a 2-hour marathon. For those of you that don't run like me, that is very fast. It is unbelievably fast. In fact, when we break that down, it looks at running 100 meters in 17.3 seconds. There are some people in this classroom that probably couldn't run 100 meter, just one of them at that fast, let alone that continuously for 2 hours. When you look at it in 800 meters, so 2 laps around the track, 2 minutes and 19 seconds, let's say, and he continues that for over 2 hours. It is incredible how the body can just provide and maintain performance. And we're going to get into that later today in this talk. But I think it's just important for us to understand that our body has enough fuel to support us through a marathon without seeing like significant decrements in performance. He then the next year actually beat that sub 2 hour marathon time, and some people would say it might be because of the shoes that he wore. So these are called a Vaporfly shoe, and they have actually have a carbon plate inside of the shoe, and this helps put more ground reaction force off the ground, and therefore can help increase performance by up to 2%. And I know that 2% doesn't sound like very fast, but when you're talking elite level performance, 2% is winning a race or not winning a race. Going a sub 2 hour marathon and going a 2 hour and 1 minute marathon. So in these cases, it does make a really big difference. So not only the fuel that we provide ourselves with, but also the amount of ergogenic aids that we have from performance clothing and shoes and whatnot. So going into fats, fat is going to be considered a dietary fat or oil that provides energy and aids in absorption of fat-soluble vitamins. It is going to be an important energy source in long duration exercise. So fat is very important, and we utilize fat when we do things that are going to be in long duration, and we use that as like our supply for fuel, right? We can store it, we can have it available for us, and it really does help in a lot of different ways. So fat can be stored in limitless quantity. So it's really important for you guys to understand the difference between the limited supply in carbohydrates and the limitless supply of fat. So we have very large energy reservoirs in fat storage, and about 20 to 35% of your calories that you eat in a day should come from fat. And just like carbohydrates, though, we do have good fats and bad fats. And so good fats can be things like nuts, avocados, salmon. We can find this in other forms of meat as well. However, butter, fried food, processed-based foods are going to be more of those bad fats that we want to stay away from. And people that do ultra marathons are going to highly rely on these fat storages in order to make it through some of these 100-mile races and these absurd amount of time that they have to spend exercising. Their fat storages and their body's ability to utilize the fat is going to be crucial. And last but not least, we have protein. So protein is a primary function to support cell and tissue growth and also maintain and repair the body. It can be used for energy, but it is more important for muscle pair and more growth. So keep that in mind, you guys. Although protein is a macronutrient, our body does not like to utilize that as its first form of energy. We like to use protein to repair the body. It is only in these like emergency based cases would you utilize protein and break protein down as a fuel source. So protein, just like all the other macronutrients we've talked about 10 to 35% of your calories should come from protein, and more in athletes and pregnant women who are going through some of these hormonal-based changes and need more protein in order to sustain the muscle mass that they have in the case of athletes. So I can't emphasize enough for you guys to, number one, understand that we need all three of these macronutrients, okay? People that tell us that diets need to be alleviate these macronutrients are probably not the best people for you to listen to. They all play an important role on how our body functions, and we should be getting a balanced diet of each one of these according to the recommendations that we have out there for fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. So protein, our primary source of protein is going to come from animal-based protein, right? So we have egg whites, fish, skinless white meat, or we have protein powders that we can get protein from. But we also have a lot of different plant-based proteins that we can have that are also very good. So we can get protein from plant. We don't have to get it all from animal. However, a lot of people do associate protein with meat, which does make sense. However, if you are more of the vegan or vegetarian route, that is also fine, and you can still get great sources of protein this way. So again, protein is for helping repair muscles and to help support and maintain that. So not necessarily a fuel source, but we like to use it in that manner. We can if we need to. The last macronutrient that I want to talk about is water. So water is considered to be a macronutrient because it plays a biochemical and physiological role in the body. Hint, hint, you need to understand that this is also part of a macronutrient. So don't forget about that. Make sure that you understand that it does play a role within the physiology of the body, and how do we utilize that. And I'm just going to leave you with this in this video. So diet water, because normal water makes you fat. This is a joke, you guys.